jeans never in boots. Always over.
Let me see. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And no square toe boots either, people. Come on.
I didn't know you were from Johannesburg. I didn't know you were from South Africa.
Yep. Born and raised. My family on both sides. Very, very back hundreds and hundreds of years.
Music in the family?
Yeah, my father was a sound engineer, and he was one of the first touring sound engineers for a lot of bands in the 70s. So he toured with like the Sweets, Suzi Quatro, like a lot of like glam rock bands, and he lived with.
Really?
Yeah, so that's what he did throughout the 70s. And then he moved back to South Africa, met my mom, and he opened his own studio that did mostly post-production for film and TV. So he moved out of like music.
Right. So by the time you came around, there was none of that left. There was no Suzi Quatro.
No, but a lot of stories. And, my father's nickname in his music days was Snake. So there's like a whole bunch of people that call my dad Snake. And there's like kids that call him like Uncle Snake and like stuff like that. That's really funny.
So art and music in the house for you?
Yeah, there were always instruments. I mean, my father played guitar, and he had a little acoustic Ibanez that was always around the house. And I just would pick it up and write songs. And I mean, I've been writing songs for as long as I can remember. When I was a kid, I used to love sitting in my room and writing songs on the guitar, or I had a little Casio keyboard. So there's always music playing in the house too, for sure.
What are songs about when you're that age? What are your songs about?
I don't know. I think, funnily enough though, I think they were very, I think I've had this kind of lonesome trope for a long time, kind of funnily and also sort of sadly. But yeah, they were probably dramatic. I've always been a little bit on that side of things.
Tell me more. What do you mean by I've had this lonesome trope for a really long time?
I just think I've always felt, not to get too deep about it, but I think I've always felt out of place in every room, and in every community and whatever you want to call it. I've always just felt different. And, now I'm like 36, and I've learned that's that feeling of feeling different. It's actually my power, not my weakness, and I've like turned that around completely 180, and I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
But it took a long time, and I think that feeling was attached to a lot of loneliness. Like, and especially when I was a kid, I felt super lonely, and I think that's where a lot of my love for country music, and also my love for sort of the philosophical idea of the cowboy, I think that felt like me, when I would watch Westerns, and it would be like the Lone Ranger or like someone on their own that's like traversing.
Jesse James.
Exactly. I think I sort of felt like that. Yeah. And so that's probably why I connected to it, I imagine.
I think what you're speaking to there is there's a power. So oftentimes people can feel not part of the culture, and they find a home in the counterculture. But then some people even feel like outsiders within the counterculture. Yeah. And they say to themselves, well, if I'm not the culture and I'm not the counterculture, what am I?
Yeah, I experienced that for sure. I think, and I think maybe it's that I think I've learned as I've gotten older that, the community, my community is like, sort of just built from the people in my support group and my friends and family, and I think that's okay. I don't think I feel okay that I don't need to be part of a greater community. Yeah. Even I'm sure I am, and I'm sure I'm welcome and all of that, but it doesn't play such a heavy role in my life anymore.
Yeah, and you build your own community around people who love you and friends and family and all that stuff, for sure. And I love the idea of you sitting down and this kid feeling a bit left out and being like, John Wayne. Or like Lone Ranger.
Exactly.
That's me.
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing, the outsider, the loner.
Sure.
I get it. I get it. So playing a bit of music, I mean, I just want to do a little bit of Orville 101 here.
Yeah.
Playing a little bit of Patti Smith's Horses, I think a very important record.
Super important, yeah. First album I bought with my own money. I bought a CD of it at.
Cool first record, by the way.
Yeah,
That is
I
a
was
cool
in
thing.
I was in Victoria with my friend. We were, I think we were like 15.
Yeah.
We were on Vancouver Island, and I went into an A&B Sound, and I bought Patti Smith on CD.
You were a cool 15-year-old.
Yeah, I sure was.
You were like, I can offer that my first CD I bought with my own money for whatever reason was Rufus Wainwright's first record.
That's awesome.
I feel similar to you.
Yeah,
that everyone
that's
else has it.
cool.
Everyone else has embarrassing first CDs.
I mean, and embarrassing ones are good too. I have plenty of those, but that was a very important album for me.
I remember Rufus came up to me one time and he said, "I heard that I was your first CD you bought with your own money." And I don't know if you've met Rufus.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of intimidating and lovely and everything. Well, intimidating to me because I've loved him so much for so long.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, mine was Right Said Fred."
Amazing. That's so funny. Especially coming from like such a classical family, like that's so funny to me.
So Patti Smith finding some inspiration in that music?
Yeah, I think, I was so into punk as a teenager.
Even then?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, with your dad, it kind of makes sense. Too.
Yeah, I grew up with, I have two older brothers, and they, when I was a kid, I would go home, and they wouldn't be home from like high school yet, and I would go in their rooms and like take their CDs and listen to their CDs.
Would you trace your steps and try to put everything back the way they were? So
100%.
I did that too.
And so I grew up not even just taking their CDs without any awareness, listening to like everything from like grunge to metal to hardcore, and so I grew up just like thinking that that's just what music was, and that's so I just listened to a lot of it.
Like who, Fugazi or?
Yeah, like some big ones. I mean, I remember like White Zombie, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Metallica, Iron Maiden, that kind of
heavy stuff.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I used to take. We had a swing on a tree in our yard, and I used to take extension cables with my boombox and take it out of my bedroom window and take it into the yard, and I would like swing and be listening to like Smashing Pumpkins 1979
on a swing.
Yeah, so there you can see the imprints that happened on for me. Sort of sums me up probably.
Yeah, there's an Instagram bio in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there? Let's continue on the 101 and let's talk about country music.
Yeah, country. What would you like to know?
Not much. I think what I'm asking, I want to build to you becoming a country singer.
Got it.
I want to know in Smashing Pumpkins, Metallica, and all that stuff.
I see, yeah.
Lyle Lovett, Randy Travis, George Jones.
Yep.
All that stuff getting played too?
So country wasn't being played in my house very much. It's a pretty, I think it's not as a popular of a genre, or at least it wasn't in South Africa when I was a kid.
That makes sense.
But I knew about Dolly Parton, and I think I'd seen her in a film. I think I saw I can't remember if it was like 9 to 5 or something, but I saw her on TV. And then I remember thinking she was a character. Like I thought she was like Pee Wee Herman or something. Like I didn't realize this was like a real person, because she has this, and still has this like incredibly sincere but camp, sort of juggling act. And then and then the first country album I remember hearing was Johnny Cash, Live from Folsom Prison.
Good record.
Yeah, and I remember Folsom Prison Blues was playing, and he gets to the part where he says, "I shot a man in Reno," and all the inmates, you can hear all the inmates
just
cheering.
To watch him die.
Yeah, and I was like, this is crazy. Yeah. Like, what is this?
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary.
It was insane. And then so I got into Johnny Cash, and then as I got older, it was always just a staple for me that I loved country music. I used to be embarrassed about telling people that, when I played in the punk community, like I used to not really talk about how much I loved country music and that I had these dreams of being a country singer. It took a long time for me to kind of build that confidence because I felt so outside of it. I didn't know how to even get my foot in the door.
You were an outsider in an outsider's genre.
For sure.
Well, but hold on. Let me just backtrack a second. Weren't you on the West End in London weren't you Peter Pan?
Well, I mean, anything's possible.
Is this one of this part of the lore we're not going to talk about?
I mean, I'm less pedantic about that these days. I used to be very intent on preserving
The mystery.
yeah, the mystery, and also just preserving my personal life, which I still do. But I'll say this, I was an actor for many, many years. I was a dancer, I was a ballet dancer, and then it was always a dream of mine to do theater on the West End in London. And so, it may or may not have happened.
Someone did it.
So, I mean, I'm sure many people do it. Someone's doing it right now.
It might be you.
You never know.
You never know. You never know. Well, I'll let you. I'll just board the boat. I'll let you steer the ship around the seas here. Tell me a little bit about. I think getting into punk is an interesting thing for anyone to do because the music, of course, is great and it has a certain spirit. And I know I sound like a 79-year-old psychotherapist talking about it. Who's never listened to it before. Well, I'm aware that it has a spirit and a certain set of rules. I find I grew up into country music, and I think you and I've talked about this before. Into sort of interesting music, weird music. And because I didn't have anyone to hang out with, I only hung out with punks because I was like, hey, if I'm going to be outside, I'm outside with these people. I seem to fit in with a little bit better with them. But you were part of the punk scene. You were in the punk scene. Outside of the music, what was it about the scene, the community, the world that you loved, that appealed to you?
I mean, I think that outsiderness for sure. And also having two brothers who were both, kind of like punks and, like metal kids. I think it was just an obvious direction for me because I felt and because I felt sort of ostracized as well. And I loved, I used to be a drummer and I loved the physical expression of that. And I feel like it was like a correlation of even when I was a dancer, it like felt so, I feel like drumming to me felt like dancing kind of. And it gave me the same feelings of expression, actually, the two of them, even though they were, one's ballet and very gentle but like, one was like thrashing on the drums, but I think, there was a lot that drew me to that community, and I'm very grateful for growing up that way, and especially touring that way. I've been touring for almost 20 years, and which is crazy. I went on my first tour when I was 18, and so
Canada.
Oh no, America actually. We went
down from
Vancouver. Yeah, we used to. Well, I don't know if I should say that. Okay.
Listen, I heard the S, and maybe you shouldn't. Yeah,
I'll decide. We didn't have like official paperwork.
There you go.
But we used to book tours ourselves on MySpace.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and we would literally print out MapQuest to get for directions because there was no such thing as like GPS or anything. I mean, there might have been GPS, but we didn't have it.
We didn't. That was like you had to pay extra money.
Yeah, but there were no iPhones or anything like that.
No.
And it was like the most grueling, uncomfortable, fruitless endeavor ever. And I was like the happiest person on the planet. Like it's probably the most excited and fulfilled I've probably ever felt, and maybe now in my career it's like a similar feeling. But the early days of touring for me and doing it very DIY and traveling in a van with my drums on my lap and just the craziness of being a teenager, a kid, like I was so young, and to be able to travel around America, and I got to explore. I mean, I think I went to like 47 states by the time I was 21 or something crazy, So it's like, it's pretty special.
Why were you so happy doing that? Why was that such a happy time?
It just felt so, it felt so adventurous, and there was so much freedom in it. I think maybe those feelings of loneliness and sort of otherness, I think that was like the world that I finally found sort of like, this is where I belong, is like on tour and performing and doing what I love. And not even necessarily the community around it, like, but even more so just like it all, if I was on tour, everything made sense when I was on tour. You know, it just felt like that was where I was meant to be.
Can you tell me the moment? Is there a moment where I'm afraid to tell people I'm a country singer? I'm afraid to tell people I love country music. Is there a moment where you're like, I'm going to start singing country music?
Yeah, so
Is this a well-worn story? I'm sorry.
No, it's not. It's not at all. No, I mean, it might be. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to talk about it.
Thank you, Orville.
It's my band that I was a drummer in, we broke up, and I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life because I had dedicated years and years and blood, sweat, and tears to this project, and then it was over. And I felt really lost. So I left Canada. I went and lived in London for 5 years.
Ontario.
You're right, London, Ontario. No, the other London. And I focused back on acting for a while, and I decided to do some things that I had always wanted to do. And I kind of, at that time in my life, was still compartmentalizing everything I was passionate about. So I felt like I played as a drummer in punk bands, and that was one thing, and that was like one box. And then I was an actor, and I wanted to do like classical theater, and that was one box. And then, I was a singer and a songwriter, and that was a whole other box. And then what happened when I was living in London, right before I moved back here, is it just all clicked for me, where I was like, well, I wanted to go back to music. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do just the daunting thing of coming up with no help and like the whole thing like I did before with my band, I was like, if I'm going to come back to it, I'm going to make country music finally, because I'm just going to have the courage to do it. And I've always wanted to do it. And I wanted to be a singer. I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to do it in a way that also feels like I included all those other passions of mine, like there's the performance and theatricality of what I do. There's the kind of punk ethos and even sometimes sound that trickles into what I still do, and I think I found a way finally to be entirely myself, and it turned into this project. This is what, so that's the thing I think is kind of important about that story, if we're talking sort of about my existence, is that I think that's why I really always used to struggle with when people thought that what I was doing was a character, or like somehow like I was pretending to be something, because this is actually the amalgamation of everything that is like the dearest and nearest to me, and truly the sort of best version of how I can like open up my chest and like show people who I am. Like, this is what that is. And so I think when I finally found that, it was like a real kind of coming together for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Just because we're not on stage doesn't mean we're not being ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just because we're not performing doesn't mean that's our true selves.
Yeah,
we can find our true selves in a lot of different ways. That's beautiful. Tell me this. We covered a lot of ground last time, and we talked about this at the beginning, but when, let's say post life-changing Q interview, that's the Back to the Future moment. You got to hear this sound.
Yeah, exactly.
Post when things start to blow up, I asked Brittany Howard from Alabama Shakes Brittany. She lives in Nashville. Yeah, lovely. And I asked her. I was surprised she had an answer. I said, like, when that first started blowing up, I said, is there a moment you can point to and go like, oh, of everything of that time, this sticks out? And I thought she was going to go like, oh, there was so much. But she had this great story about like Leeds, I think maybe, and playing Hold On, and people were climbing trees to see them, and everybody was singing, and it was just sort of like, wow, I have come a long way from playing in basements in Alabama. For sure. Is there, let's talk about in that first big run, is there a moment? I'll keep talking so you get a moment to think about it. Is there a moment of like, I was in a van not that long ago, or I was trying to figure this out long ago, and look, here I am.
We were just my bass player and I were just talking about this last night. yeah, that first year, that same year that we did Q and everything, we finished off the year by being flown out by Dior to Miami to be fit in custom Dior. Played the after party for the show. I sat front row next to the Kardashians, David Beckham. Like, that was like a real, I think all of us kind of looked at each other and we were like, this is like come quite, I mean, it was sort of like everyone was a little bit speechless. Like,
Wow.
that first year and a little bit after, it was a very steep runway to what eventually would start to happen, and it was really hard to process at times for all of us. It was kind of crazy because like we were all these kids that played for like $5 at the
Oh, the band.
pub.
The band is that too.
Yeah, so that like my band was like that as well, and so and I still have a lot of my band members from that time, and so it was like we were all could feel we were part of something that was like bubbling.
Yeah.
And it was sort of it was so exciting. Thinking about it right now, it actually was such a cool time.
It's none of my business, and I actually am. I have you stopped. For people who don't know, you took a break from touring to get healthy or for your mental health, for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I so much so don't want to ask why you took a break, because I am in admiration for you for doing it, because I know so many people who should have.
Yeah.
Who still should.
Yeah.
And who haven't. That I just want to say the ability to go, I'm out for a little while.
Yeah, it was
beautiful thing.
Like the hardest decision I've ever made, but it was the best decision I ever made.
What can you do, again, I'm on the boat, you grab the steering wheel. What did getting healthy look like? And I'm talking about like rich walks or sound baths. I don't know. I just remember one time, just name drop. I once interviewed Adele.
Amazing.
And I said, stuff like therapy and walks. And I remember she went, sound baths.
Yeah.
So I still don't really know what sound baths are.
No, it was a number of things. Like, just I would say the biggest thing was accepting and learning for the first time how to have a balance in my life between work and everything else. I think it was about coming to terms with that my life had changed in a lot of ways, just my personal life. I think when you get a certain amount of success, like something very different happens with your life, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be, but it was a hard thing for me. And I think I never took the time to process that properly because it was so like fast. Then the pandemic hit. It was like nothing. Then the pandemic was over and it was like, oh my God, like get right back to work.
Get big money.
Catch up.
Yeah.
Do everything we missed out on for the last year.
Yeah.
And like, by around this time last year, 2023, I basically was like, I realized it was almost like I'd been like, flying a jet, and suddenly I'm like, oh fuck, I have no fuel left. Like and I'm like still in the sky.
Yeah.
And I was about to go on a full like year-long tour. So yeah, it was around this time last year. It was almost a year ago. It was like a year ago last week.
Wow.
I played Madison Square Garden, and then I canceled my touring for a year, and I went back to Los Angeles and tried to figure out who I was if I didn't have music.
I'm grateful for you for telling that story.
Thanks. Yeah,
And,
I'm grateful for people for still being my fans and coming to my concerts after that, because I couldn't even. There wouldn't be enough time for me to tell you the amount of things I was able to learn about myself and love about myself over this last year. And not to sound dramatic, but if I hadn't been allowed to take that time, I don't know if I'd be here, honestly. It was really bad. So it's like, Yeah, it's very, very special to me that people had enough compassion for. I think everyone should be able to do that, if they have to.
Can you give me an example of something that you do now on tour that maybe you didn't do before, which is a way of keeping that?
Yeah, I meditate a lot.
Me too.
I do transcendental meditation.
TM, do you? What's your mantra? I'm only joking.
Not me about to say it. That is so funny. And what else? I think, I mean, I've always journaled a lot. My journaling is very different now. It's like I journal for like an hour and a half every morning when I wake up and just make sure I'm like really grounded and getting my thoughts out. And I think the biggest difference though is actually what happens when I'm off tour, and the fact that I can be off tour is like the biggest difference probably. And so, I've decided that for me, I can only ever do touring in like legs and spurts. I can't do marathon touring any longer. I'm too old. I've done it for too long. It's like no interest to me. And when I'm off tour, I try as hard as possible, although it's harder when you're in the middle of an album cycle sometimes, but I try as hard as possible to do everything else in my life that has nothing to do with music and nothing to do with work, and spend time with my partner, hang out with my dog, see my parents, water my garden and cook, and like just be a normal fucking person, which is that's been just invaluable to me.
Wary of the time, I want to tell you how much I love listening to the record.
Thank you.
Loved the Molly Tuttle tune, which is a Magnetic Fields tune.
Yeah, it's a cover. Yeah, Papa Was a Rodeo.
Yeah, good song.
Thank you.
I love the whole thing. I feel like if I go into it, I'll start feeling like I'm alienating other songs. But I love the Kylie Minogue, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
that must have been pretty cool. Were you a Kylie fan?
Of course. I mean, in South Africa, Kylie is like the ultimate, because there's a lot of Australian crossover with music and things. And having Kylie was insane. And I think, the whole point of Stampede was part of that kind of journey I took last year of reframing a lot of things in my life. It was also, Stampede was such a beautiful thing that happened for me because it was a chance to be outside of my comfort zone and just have fun with music again. Like not, feel like there were any limitations. I mean, I literally felt like the most creative I've felt making music in so long, and it made me love making music again because it was just like this adventure to, you do a song with Kylie Minogue and you're like, fuck, where can this take us? Like, let's just do something crazy. And, I sing a song in Spanish and like, we kind of just went like ham and made every song its own thing. And it was such an adventure.
Man, who knew that Kylie would come back that way?
So good.
I heard, Padam Padam.
Oh my God, so good.
Like again, and I put it on and with headphones on.
I know. I'm so glad she's getting her flowers.
Man, Padam Padam. I love the song you did with Willie Nelson.
Thank you.
Cowboys are frequently secretly fond of each other. That I didn't know. I heard that on Brokeback, I think.
Yep.
And I thought Willie wrote it.
Right.
But it's a cover.
It's a cover
of or a version of someone else's song. Willie, tell me about working with Willie. Was that done in two separate studios? Did you ever get to talk to him? Did you?
Oh yeah, of course. We recorded separately, but
just tell me.
Well, we played a festival together, and I'd heard that he was a fan of mine, and which is insane. And like, let's just put that out there.
I just caught you catching it. I just caught you going.
Like, so crazy. And he invited me onto his tour bus, which no one goes on the tour bus, because like he's like, I mean, at that time he was probably about 88 or something, or still, Did
you play poker?
No, we had coffee actually. It was like I think I had just played my set and he was about to go on, and there was like a changeover, and I went on the bus and we hung out for a while, and his son Lucas was there, who I've known for a little while before, and I was sort of just speechless being there. You know, you're like, I'm like looking at like his guitar triggers like sitting right there. And like, I mean, it was just insane. It was like a film, you know, you just don't really know. Nothing you can say feels like it would be like of any importance in that moment. So you're just like, shut up, basically. And, you know, he was so sweet. He's chatting and then he said, oh, I heard you do a cover of that old Ned Sublette tune, who's the original writer. And because I used to cover it in my live set sometimes. And I was like, yeah, I do. And he said, you know what we should do is we should do that as a duet, and we should redo it because it's more important now than ever. And I was like, yeah. You know, I was almost waiting for someone to be like, just kidding, because it was like the craziest
just for laughs gags.
Yeah,
person
like it was so much to. There was so much to unpack. Just even being there and then like get that bomb dropped on you.
It's so important now for this time too. What a thing to say.
Willie's the coolest ever. Cooler than people would ever know. Like more the guy you want him to be than you would ever know.
Yeah. Less the marketing campaign than you ever would.
Oh my God, he doesn't give a shit.
No, doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
He is a true outlaw. He has so much respect for humanity, and he has such a respect for artists. It's so beautiful. It's so cool. I mean, when the song came out, he was when our duet came out, he was 91 by the time that our duet came out. 91 years old. Wow. He's done everything imaginable in his career, obviously. I mean, I don't even need to say this. We know who Willie Nelson is, but it's like for him to do that song with me, and that particular song it just tells you everything you would ever need to know about Willie Nelson.
Do you ever I was going to say, do you ever get a moment to bask in your own impact? And here's what I mean by that.
No, I think that's a funny way to put it.
Here's what I mean by that. I think there's a lot, rightfully, a lot written about you, about people who have felt historically excluded from country music being able to find a way to the music through you, and opening the door for a lot of people, queer folks who maybe have not felt at home in the music. What I have been struck by is that you loved country music first, and then you came back to it. And I wonder if you ever get a moment to think about yourself as someone who brought people back to country music. That maybe they found themselves in country music and then they went, oh no, I'm actually not home here in this music that I love. And I'm back in this home that I had before. Yeah,
it's I think finally sunk in for me over the last while. It's been a while now, a couple years, I would say. I've sort of actually understood the importance of my visibility, representation, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because you know, I almost maybe naively just never assumed that being gay would make a difference to whatever genre of music I wanted to play. It just never even dawned on me.
Yeah.
So I went in just like, I'm here, you know, like I don't know, like it didn't occur to me that I would be having an impact on people in that way, that they felt like it was something important to see someone like me. But then now looking back, and of course, like myself being a fan of country and a fan of country when I was young, if there had been a gay country artist when I was a kid, I would have lost my fucking mind, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it just never occurred to me because I was never, I think when I was a kid, there was like, we had like barely any gay representation, period.
On TV or in movies.
It was like
or anything.
Will and Grace, Katie Lang, and Elton John. Like, that was it. Those were the only gay people on earth at that time. And so, like, I think what it took was learning firsthand from people who are fans of what I do, telling me their personal stories of how much what I do impacts them, even more so than anything that could be my own story personally. Like, it's so moving and humbling and touching, and it's become one of the most important things about my career, and it was totally unexpected.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I love having you in.
Thank you so much. I love being here. It's so nice to catch up.
Nice to catch up with you too. Want to do a quick little quiz?
Yes, I'd love to.
It's called What Has Bigger Cowboy Energy?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, number one, golden retriever or Chihuahua?
I'm gonna say Chihuahua actually.
Really?
Because,
Got bigger?
well, yeah, because it's not about being the biggest dog. It's like the bark. You know what I mean?
I just am so happy about this. Espresso or instant coffee?
Instant coffee.
Gotta be
course,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want, you got
Espresso.
This is one that I came up with, and I think it's absurd, but I do get a kick out of it. Looney or Toonie?
Ooh, that's a good one. Looney, maybe Looney. It's like so classic.
I think the Looney, it's a gold coin.
Exactly. Like buy on that thing and tell them there's gold in them heels.
Three's Company or Golden Girls?
Golden Girls for sure.
Gotta be outlaws.
Yeah.
All of them.
All of them. Yeah, maniacs.
Boots over jeans or jeans over boots?
No. Boots. Jeans never in boots. Always over.
Let me see. Yeah, you're right.
And no square toe boots either, people. Come on, let's have some self-respect.
I have Blundstones.
Those are fine. Those aren't cowboy boots.
Well, you're right. Okay. Those are just a blanket, no square toe boots. Construction sites everywhere.
No. For cowboy boots. I
don't think I should gecko. I've always wanted to have a pair. I have low confidence for cowboy boots in that part of my life, but I'm gonna get some.
Yeah, you should definitely get some.
All right, I'm gonna go to Boot Burn.
Yeah.
Come on, Boot Burn. Jean jacket or plaid shirt?
Oh, they go hand in hand for me. So I'm like a Neil Young fan, so it's hard for me to differentiate the
two. Trixie or Katya?
Ooh, Trixie.
Bigger cowboy energy,
yeah,
for sure. We've besmirched the Toonie, which was the point of the conversation today. I feel so. I said this to you before we got going, and I'll say it on the microphone. I don't have any. I didn't have anything to do with anything, but I got to talk to you right before it all happened, and it's been really amazing to see both symbolically and literally what's been going on.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to catch up.